I want to go first to the macro picture, this rotation, this move to small caps, this idea that maybe we've been too hyped in AI valuations. Are you buying it?
Hi, Caroline. Thanks so much for having me. I don't think so. And I could easily be wrong. But if you go back and look at small caps, they tend to be a trade more than an investment. And I just went back and looked at performance of the IWM for 10 years and 20 years. And the 20-year, which is when a period when you had really low interest rates, you had growth, they lagged the large cap index, S&P 500, by 250%. And over the 10 years, they were about half of the S&P 500. So I think if you expect interest rates to come down dramatically and quickly for all the right reasons, that will benefit small cap names. But I just don't think that's the case. I think we'll see a slow decline in interest rates. Many of these companies are highly levered. Their earnings are not great, and generally speaking, in either index. And so I think for now, if you think the economy's slowing, you want to stick with names like ServiceNow that have delivered consistent mid-20% growth for the last 3 years.
Before we dig into ServiceNow, I just want to stay on the macro ideal. And we were speaking with the NASDAQ CEO just a little bit earlier on the show. Adina Freeman joined to talk about whether we're being affected in animal spirits by broader macro policy. Just take a listen for a moment.
The monetary policy outlook and other geopolitical, factors, I think, are still keeping investors a little bit more risk they have a little bit more risk aversion. But we're seeing some real good progress, and we think that going into 2025, we should see more momentum in terms of the pipeline of companies that we've been talking to.
She's talking about IPO pipeline, but from your perspective, do you agree that people are still risk averse at the moment, or actually it doesn't feel like that when we're near all record highs on the benchmarks?
No, agreed. But also remember that we still have about $6 trillion in cash on the sidelines. So I think definitely investors are hedging and their bets on where we're going. We think we're in the early days or the early innings of a new bull market that began in October of 2022, driven by technology and generative AI, which we think is sustainable and will drive productivity. If you look at productivity in the U.S. minus rest of world, what you see is that we've hit a 25-year high, and productivity drives earnings, earnings drive stock prices. So from a macro standpoint, the GDP number would indicate that we're really not slowing, but let's just assume that we're slowing. That's always going to be good for risk assets that can generate reliable earnings growth. So I don't know. The data is so mixed, Caroline, and then it gets revised dramatically. So I think you just have to look at the company level, and that's where you get the best information.
Let's go company level. Let's go to what Bill McDermott was just telling me over at ServiceNow. And I know you're a big fan of Bill's and have been in this stock and committed to it, Nancy. What I was hearing from him is, look, our generative AI pipeline is doubling quarter on quarter because of the new optionality and way in which that you can be organizing your workflow from a generative AI perspective. They signed, I think it was 70 deals in Q1. They've now doubled that, they're saying, overall, more than doubled that in the Q2. And just listen to Bill for a moment on ultimately how real the generative AI hype is. Take a listen.
In some cases it is. And a lot of people are whitewashing AI and pretending that they've got something. Ask to see the demo, show me the product, show me the use cases. Do you know my industry? Do you know my business? Is there a use case there? And how can I turn that into productivity and real value add from my stakeholders to improve the way my company runs? There's a lot of pretenders out there, Caroline. We're not one of them. We're a winner.
Well, today his stock is a winner, Nancy. Who are the pretenders? Who are the real winners in your mind's eye?
Well, I think, and proving why he's such a great CEO, he's also a great salesman. I'm buying. Listen, in our 12 best ideas portfolio, where we do own ServiceNow, we also think that Microsoft is a winner. That may seem super obvious, but they are a leader, and they're going to integrate and already have integrated generative AI throughout the product offering. I think that the chip names, that the usual suspects, I've always talked on your show, we own the poor man's Broadcom, which thankfully we trimmed pretty dramatically before the sell-off. But I think they're a winner. I think Dell's a winner. And then I think just application wise, you can look across software providers. Adobe's probably a winner. But I do think that the CRM Workday joint venture, and I heard your interview, it was excellent, is indicative of the fact that they feel threatened by ServiceNow's penetration into both of their business lines, and they're doing it seamlessly. So they do need to join together, and I think that will be interesting. We exited CRM because we're not convinced they are a winner.